Good morning, friends. Welcome back to Bush Poppy Farm. Today we are actually at the farm because we're going to do a farm tour. It's been a long time since I've given you guys a farm tour, and that's mostly because things have been growing so slowly, there hasn't been anything to look at. So we are finally starting to get some growth. Almost 8 weeks after when we should be where we're at now. We finally have things that we're harvesting on a regular basis. So right here I'm standing next to a straw flower bed. Now this is usually much denser than it is, but beggars can't be choosers, and there are plenty of harvestable stems here. We have colors ranging from reds to oranges to apricots, and then of course this beautiful white. It's a vintage white. And then a little bit of yellow, but we are at least having straw flower to harvest. So let's go further down the row. Our marigolds are looking great. These guys, I do not need these tags. I just realized they were from when we had basil here that did not survive. So the marigolds are looking great. We've been harvesting off of these couple plants down here for a while now. The stems are just starting to get long enough for really good stem length, but I've been harvesting them short to dry. And then of course, we've got lots of gorgeous sunflowers right now. These are Sunflower Steve Van Gogh Fantasy Mix. Really pretty. And I'm really excited to harvest these for the customers today. There's a lot of really nice big heads that'll make gorgeous bouquets. Now in this row, things are a lot slower. So this area here that has straw in it is all Bells of Ireland. They're still here, but they're really not growing at all. They're super tiny. They went in as tiny plugs. You know, we'll just see. Either we'll get production out of them or we won't. But down here, we've got direct sown zinnias, and they are finally, as you can see, coming up. Finally. And here is the feverfew. Now, generally in mid-July, it's this tall and super bushy, very dense, but like I said, I am not going to complain. I'm going to take what I can get. There are harvestable stems here, and what I'm thinking is, I'm not going to pull these in the fall. Feverfew can overwinter here in my zone, and so I'm gonna leave this whole bed of feverfew. It's half of a 40-foot bed, and I'm still going to start seeds of feverfew, and I will plant them probably at the rest of this bed so that we have a whole bed of feverfew, and we'll see what happens. If it doesn't survive the winter, which I can't imagine it won't, then I will have fall planted feverfew that went in, and then I can also start some more in very early spring. But I think if I give these guys a whole year, they will really get dense, and then they'll start really pumping out the blooms like they normally do on their first year. So back here we have a very sparse, very anemic stand of snapdragons. So these are fall planted snapdragons. Again, normally by this time of year, they're very big and bushy, very tall, tons of stems coming out of them. This is just how it's been about for every crop pretty much this whole season. But I did plant all these tiny seedlings of the very heat tolerant bronze snapdragons, and they are doing well. So I'm hoping that this bed will fill in more as the season goes on. And we do have some pinhole pricks in our irrigation because it's running right now, so I definitely have to repair those. And right up front here is the only statice that survived. Again, statice always gets picked off by birds, and even though I had this bed covered, things have struggled all year. I've been picking off very, very short stems up to now, and they will start putting on taller stems, but these at this point are still too short for market bouquets. They're totally fine for drying, and they will keep all this color, but they are starting to get taller stem-wise. And behind us here are some more zinnias. These were all direct sown. They're coming up nicely. However, there's still plenty of holes. I did come back in and pop in seeds last week, and I can see them starting to germinate here wherever we had holes. So hopefully we'll get some good plants out of them. But we are having some production again. Like this one's pretty much ready to harvest, but too short. So I will go ahead and cut it anyway, because that will make things want to branch. And then down at the end of this row, we have limelight and purple millet, my favorite grasses for bouquets. Now this right here is the crop that has done the best on the farm this year so far. This is the biggest stand of Daucus chocolate lace flower that I've ever had. It's about, maybe 10 to 12 feet bed length of Daucus. And I have another succession right here, but this stuff produces like crazy, as you can see. The bees love it. Parasitoid wasps love it. It's a great landing pad for tiny feet of insects, and there's lots of nectar in these flowers. But it's really important for me to keep harvesting these, even though I can't possibly use all of the flowers. I've been drying as many as I can as well. But the important thing is that I harvest as many as possible, because otherwise the plant will shut down, just go to seed, and stop producing these flowers. And I would love to have them for the rest of the season, since this strip of flower production is the best one on the farm. So this is the bed that we flipped almost 2 weeks ago now, and I direct sowed sunflowers in the first 10 feet, and they are already starting to germinate down there at the end. This bed will just get 10 feet of sunflowers every 10 to 15 days or so, and then we'll have a constant succession. And I did leave the netting up, even though usually I don't net sunflowers. It'll be fine. It's still kind of hard to harvest them through the netting, but I prefer to have netting on as many beds as possible. In fact, that is one of the jobs I have to do this morning after we film this video. Lisianthus. Okay, we've got 2 beds of Lisianthus here. As you can see, one is doing a whole lot better than the other. The older leaves, still very yellow on the bottom. This bed just not producing nearly as well as this other one, but that's okay. There will still be plenty of stems here. So I have one here that is very close to harvest. Now these first stems are very, very short, and that's okay. Last year I panicked because I had never grown Lisianthus before, and I didn't realize that's just what they do. Their initial stem is super short. You cut that off, and then they branch like crazy, and you get super tall, beautiful stems. Now this bed, it is crucial that I net this bed with flower support netting today, because Lisianthus get really big, they fall over very easily, and they really need the support if you want to have those beautiful blooms. So the varieties in this bed, we have Celebrity Yellow back here. This one is Little Summer Orange. And then we have a pink variety here, I believe. Yes, Corelli Light Pink. This is the one I was really hoping for, because this color is highly sought after by florists. We'll get some, but we won't have a really great harvest out of these, unfortunately. Okay, the majority of this bed here is Didyscus, which they don't look like they've grown a whole lot since I put them in as small seedlings. We'll see. Hopefully, with the heat coming, they will put on some good growth and we'll actually get some blooms. And then we have another stand of sunflowers here. A lot of these are close, if not ready for harvest. So I think our bouquets this week are going to be really pretty, mostly sunflowers. We've got one succession right here. There's another succession behind it of super short ones. And then there's another tall succession behind that. Now this is another bed that's on the struggle bus. This was planted, this entire bed we planted with the Bronze Rocket Snapdragon seedlings. There are plenty still in here, but a lot of them got eaten. So what I did was I came in and I direct sowed zinnias into all the holes that were disintegrated. And I'm hoping those will germinate and we'll be able to fill in the spots. At the very end there, we have celosia, and I still have some holes in there that I'm going to plant the celosia that's in the greenhouse right now. This pathway is going to be the focus of this week. I'm going to bring my scuff hoe out. We have to clear out all these weeds so that we can get cardboard and wood chips down, because as you can see, it's overgrown and it spills into the beds. Now this bed here, doing great. It's another sunflower bed. I direct sowed all of these. Some of them on that left-hand side didn't all germinate, but that's okay. I'm happy with what's here. Beyond that is more Didyscus, and again, just still not really producing that well. So we have to come back in here with the hedge trimmer and trim back all of the weeds from the edge and give them the cardboard and wood chip treatment as well. This is our floret dahlia bed. These were all started from seed last year, last spring, and they just love to produce these blooms. And they're all big open collarette types. Sometimes they're worth harvesting because they look great. Sometimes they're kind of ratty and torn up and I don't harvest them. The bees love these. And so I'm very happy just to leave them for the bees. But I do need to come in and deadhead. There are some here that already bloomed, and you can always tell because they get pointy. So before they bloom, they're round like little balls. Then as they start to open, they get more angular, and then when they're done and they need to be deadheaded, they're kind of shredded, but they also look more pointed like a bird's beak at the end. So when you cut those off, that signals to the plant to keep producing more flowers. So we've got a variety of pretty colors here. So this morning when I'm harvesting, I will harvest some of these if they look like they will hold up in the vase. Dahlias are funny. Most flowers you want to harvest before they're fully open. But with dahlias, they don't usually continue to open in the vase very well, and so you kind of want to harvest them where you want them to stay. But if they are too open and they've already been pollinated by the bees, then they'll start to drop their flowers pretty quickly, and they don't last in the vase then. So there's kind of a tipping point. So generally with these, I've been harvesting them just for myself because I don't really have enough for customers in this bed, but I do enjoy it so much, and so do the pollinators. This bed, direct sown zinnias, as you can see, they are coming up, but I did have to go back in with all these. There was holes in places where either they got eaten or they just dried up or whatever, or didn't germinate. And so I planted more, but I really expected them to be much further along at this point. However, again, we've been really cold. And so this week is going to be our first week of really having consistent temperatures in the upper 80s into the low 90s. And I think then the zinnias will really start to thrive. The dahlia bed. Now, this bed, again, because of our consistently cold temperatures, just really hasn't performed as much as I thought it would yet, but we'll get there. This guy is Tiny Treasure. This is the only dahlia that we have so far. I will come in and cut this way down here so we can promote some bushing. I do need to come in and put a corral around this bed soon, because dahlias do like to tip over, and this way we can keep them kind of roped in and kind of trellised, so to speak. Some dead material around here, but it's coming back at the bottom. So, I'll come through and I'll trim up. We got a weed, but all of the gopher cages we've put in have really done their job. We don't have gophers in the beds, and even though we've got some weeds, that can be hand pulled. We can get these guys corralled and they'll be good to go. Now, right next to us here is the sweet pea bed, still just pumping flowers. This is the best sweet pea year I've ever had. Part of it's because I've been very diligent in harvesting consistently and getting every flower off to tell the plant it still needs to produce more. So yeah, these guys have really been kicking it into high gear. We do have some powdery mildew down here. I totally am not worried about that. This is a bonus. I didn't expect to be harvesting off of these for customers, but I have been. I make entire huge bouquets of single colors. People get mixed tendrils and things in their bouquets. It's just been really, really nice. And you know, they're fragrant. And when I do let them go to seed, they'll drop all their seed in this bed. Those will germinate for next year, and we'll just continue to have more. So this bed is kind of self-contained, and as long as it gets the proper irrigation and some fertilization, it's just going to keep giving us flowers year over year. Now I would like to add in some colors. The only reason these colors are here is these are the ones I had left over. These were leftover seeds. I'm not as big of a fan of the reds. They're pretty, but they're harder to combine with things than say the pinks or the blues. So, you know, I might introduce down here, we have a little bit more space. I might introduce a few of the colors that I really want. And we also have some space down here to do the same. But I do need to go behind this trellis with the hedge trimmer and knock down the weeds again. However, now that we're not getting rain anymore, and it's been many months, the weed situation is much better than it was because there's no moisture in the soil to get things going. Now these two beds also need weeding in between and cardboard and wood chips, and they will be getting that this week. But these are the heirloom mums, this row here, almost to the end where we have didiscus. Oh no, I think there's still heirloom mums down there. It's just different variety. Yeah, different variety. So this whole row is mums. 90% of this row is mums. And then at the very end, we have didiscus, which is actually doing better in the less sun area than the stuff up there. So maybe that's something to keep note of. These beds are in the shade in the morning, but then they get direct sun all afternoon. So as you can see, the chrysanthemums are very happy. Now these are perennial beds. I am not pulling these guys out at the end of this year because they do overwinter for me. And this saves me a whole lot of money. We have multiple colors. I have 4 different varieties in here. And the beds do need to be weeded, but otherwise they're doing great. They look good, they're getting plenty of water, and we'll be having lots of really beautiful blooms coming off of these guys probably by the end of August into early September. Okay, the last bed I want to show you is this perennial bed that we planted, I don't know, a month or 2 ago. I do see a few weeds in here, but for the most part, it's looking great. We have a couple of different varieties of yarrow. We've got Agastache, which is starting to bloom. These are great for pollinators as well as for cutting. And then the rest of this bed is Alstroemeria. So this is, again, a permanent perennial bed, and I like that I can easily dig these guys up and take them with me eventually, because the dream is to be able to have our own property where we live on it and farm on it, and we don't have to rent it anymore. I love the people who I rent this farm space from. They are wonderful, wonderful people who are doing a lot for native plants and animals in our area, and just super supportive. I love them. I can't say enough good things about them. But eventually we would like to have our own spot. So while I'm super grateful to be here, I do want to keep in mind that nothing's permanent. And so if this was my property and I was planting here all the time and was mine to do what I wanted, I would actually be planting this whole back area. A huge swath would be perennials. Because it just makes sense. It takes longer for them to come into production, but once they're in production, they're just kind of nonstop, and they are things that they're something you can always count on. So here in Zone 9B, I would be planting more roses, lupins, more dahlias, more salvias, more yarrow. I would probably have some peonies, although the reason they work for me at home is that my house is in a bit of a valley. We are here too, but it gets way colder at my house than it does here. We go into the 20s in the wintertime, whereas here on the farm, we kind of hover right around 30 is about as low as it gets. And the peonies really do need that cold stratification period. So I could try a few out here and see if they worked, but so those would be the kind of things that I would plant. I would also plant things like mountain mint and some euphorbias, things that I could use, 9-bark, some of the other wonderful foliage that is often lacking at various times of year because of the weather or whatever, but with perennials, you can count on them much more. So those are the types of things I would do. Now, I've tried to do some of that at my house, but we have very limited space there for growing. So if I want to give up the vegetable garden, I could turn that all into perennials for the flower farm, but I need my vegetable garden. I need that for my happiness. I love it. Even though I get frustrated because a lot of it disappears, as has been happening this year. I can't imagine not having a veggie garden. So that is the early July tour of the farm. And when I go back and I look at other years, photographs, etc., it's just crazy how far behind we are. I am very grateful that there are things to harvest today. And I'm also very grateful that it's summer session right now, because my summer CSA session is the least populated because people go on vacations, and so they don't usually, not as many people sign up for the summer session. But spring and fall are big sessions, and so I'm hoping the fall one, which begins August 20th and goes through September, will be much fuller because we'll have some beautiful things to choose from. The other thing is I lost a huge amount of revenue this year because the wholesaler that I had planned on working with left the area, and about 40 farms, small farms like us, got basically left behind. So I was going to scramble and find local florists and other people to work with, but because I've had such a challenge with things coming in on time, I haven't really been able to put together enough to sell. So I guess it's a small blessing, even though it was lost revenue, to have that happen, because now I don't have the pressure of having to fulfill wholesale orders when I don't have things to harvest. But that will change come fall, when I'll have a ton of marigolds and chrysanthemums and dahlias and things like that, and I need to find a market for those. So I'm hoping that I can start working with local florists to make that happen. All right, guys, I'm gonna get to harvesting. Thank you for hanging out. I hope you enjoyed today's little farm tour, and I fully expect things to get better as time goes on. At least all the rodent control that we did out here last year, putting in these cages, as painstaking as it was and as ugly as it looks, it's been effective. And if the weather was better, more seasonal, then we actually would be having just booming success. So I'm really happy that we did that. Now, as long as I can just get my rodent control at home, we'll be all good. Thanks so much for hanging out. I hope you have a wonderful time in your garden, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.